I'd like to call this Human Resources meeting into order. Roll call, please.
Carol Young,
Here.
Scott McClory,
Here.
Tim Sharota.
Here. I'll make a motion to adjourn into closed session.
I'll second.
Oh, and we will reconvene into open session after we come out. Is that word always says that, right?
Do we need to read the actual statute as to why or no? Because it was posted?
We've never done that in the past, but okay. We've never said pursuant to 1619.3, whatever. Okay. Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851E for competitive or bargaining reasons, in response to a letter from the Labor Association of Wisconsin on behalf of the Police Association, I will amend my motion to reflect that.
Perfect.
I'm in my second.
All right, well, I'll make a motion in open session to remain status quo and not engage with the PD regarding potential HRA benefits until they are in active collective bargaining heading towards 2025.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we'll have a discussion and possible decision regarding the medical leave bank and donated PTO leave bank policies. Anyone?
Adam?
Sure. So, there's a variety of different issues, but sort of the sort of central question that's come up has been about, there's been some feedback that the policy seemed contradictory between the personnel policy and this donated leave bank policy, because on the one hand, the personnel policy says that when somebody leaves, their MLB bank is supposed to, be emptied and there's, they don't get paid out anything. The donated leave bank policy says that basically the medical leave bank, when somebody leaves, gets dumped into that. So the question, we have for you is, should it be that an employee, and just as a refresher, the way it works right now is, let's say on my anniversary date, I've got, extra PTO hours that I haven't used. I can put those hours into my own personal medical leave bank, and then if a FMLA event comes up that I need time off, you can then access that medical leave bank. So that's kind of what's happening right now. But then of course you can only use that again for FMLA events. So, but if for some reason I leave and then I've got these unused MLB hours, then it's been operating that, my MLB hours then get dumped into this PTO donated leave bank, which any other employee can access for a FMLA event. So we just want some feedback from you guys about, is that the way you want it to be working? The caveat too, we should say, is that right now the donated leave bank has been wiped to zero just because we've had a lot of, employees the last year or two have been, using hours. So we don't really have a lot to give right now. And the way the policy is written, it says you can't donate, and I know this is complicated, but they say that you can't donate from your own medical leave bank to put into this PTO donated leave bank until you have at least 500 hours. It's 520. So realistically, only really long-term employees, for example, like the chief, has donated in recent years. So only, employees who have banked a lot of medical leave bank really can even, under the policy, donate anyway to this donated leave bank. So we don't envision the way the policy is written right now that you're gonna have a lot of extra hours going in this donated leave bank unless people leave the city is pretty much the only way it's gonna happen, because people just aren't even eligible really to donate. So, so we just kind of wanted to talk about it and get your feedback. Yeah, that's really, I don't know, Lacey, do you have something to add or?
Yes. I believe that right now with the PTO donated bank being depleted, if we're going to make any significant changes and or possibly get rid of the policy, that now would be the time to do it. And I do believe that it's an item that we should seriously consider getting rid of.
So would a potential change be to make it easier for people to donate instead of 520 hours? They could donate if they had 350 hours or something. That would actually hurt them.
Correct.
If they had an illness. So we're almost encouraging them to deplete their own account.
Right, and that is one of our concerns, why we didn't sort of suggest that as a, like, potential way to go, because then, yeah, we'd hate for, you know, Matt, let's say, to donate his hours, and then something happens to Matt, and now he has no hours, and then he's like, well, I gave my hours to the city, and, you know, now I'm up a creek, so.
Is there any other feasible solution to that? If you exclude that one as not doable, any other suggestions on how you could fix it, or is Lacey's idea of eliminating it the way to go?
The one way to fix it, or you could fix it, and I should have mentioned this in my introduction, would be, the one thing we had talked about was, well, right now, there's not been any cap on, the only cap has been, technically, you can't use more than 520 hours. You can't borrow more than 520 hours from it, so, so one thought being, well, maybe you start putting limits on how much people can borrow, you know, maybe you only allow 40 hours or 80 hours, or whatever that number is, and maybe you make it based upon length of service with the city factoring into that, because, you know, we have had some, you know, newer, and you know, the original policy was created to try and help newer employees, but the flip side's been, we definitely have had some employees kind of cycling through who have been here a short time, they come, they get a big, you know, use a decent amount of this donated bank, and then they, you know, move on, and they haven't really contributed much to it. So one way to address that is maybe you put a cap on, you know, if you're here for a year or two, you can only use, I don't know, again, 40 hours or 80 hours, whatever that number is, and that would help reduce the usage of it, and then that way it might keep it around longer, and so there is some available.
Well, I guess I'm not immediately opposed or proposed to that, either one of those. I mean, if there's something that you guys can massage a little bit on your end, maybe come back to HR and go, this is what we think is the best way to fix this. Either get the policy to match the practice, or vice versa, or like Tim said, make a change to massage the language so it's not, you know, I don't want to say taking advantage of, but, you know, some people have been afforded the opportunity because of dire circumstances, and then, you know, on the back end, those people might be left high and dry if it, you know, ever comes up to them. So I guess I don't have enough right now to make a formal thumbs up, thumbs down on where we're at. I mean, there's too many, you know, for me, there's too many variables, and, you know, like if you guys could come up with, from the staff side of things, we think this is the best practice, and you know, this is what we'd like to go from 540 to 320, or have a cap, or, you know, you can only, you know, like to Joel's situation, you know, he's got a zillion hours, but he can only give up, say, 80 in one calendar year, so he doesn't inadvertently delete himself thinking he's doing his other colleagues a solid. Maybe cap it that way too. I'm just saying, for right now, I'm in kind of a timeout on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, for clarification too, we understand there's a lot of variables. I think partly this was to get the conversation started,
Sure.
and also to get a sense as to what was your understanding as to what was supposed to be happening, because again, these policies do, one could argue, are somewhat inconsistent, although, you know, and part of that too is, you know, from the city, does it make more sense for the employees, or better for the employees, that you could, you know, get paid out a portion of your medical leave bank? Maybe it's only 25%, you know, when you leave.
And right now, if I heard you correctly, it's zero, correct?
It's zero, right. So maybe, you know, the city would potentially save money, because right now, I'm gonna say, again, hypothetically, Lacey leaves, she's got 200 medical leave bank hours. Instead of those 200 hours getting dumped into this donated bank that anybody can use, maybe she gets paid out 25% of that, the hours are wiped away, and then the city's not paying, you know, 100% of those hours for somebody else to use. So that's I mean, these are just wanting to get what your thoughts are as to kind of
Yeah, that was
how
a good
this,
option.
how
Nice
this,
one.
how this works, so.
But then other, you know, if you're gonna play that card, potentially, if I'm tracking you correctly, we're gonna need Corey to be able to go, if everybody quits tomorrow, this is how much we'd have to pay out. And can we afford that? And how do we budget for that? She's shaking her head no. Because, I mean, there was a reason a million years ago, 2007, the county drew a line in the sand and said, everybody who gets hired as a cop, and from this point forward, you are not getting anything paid out. You're gonna get one time, right now, on the day you sign, you're getting $3,000, but your sick bank can be 10,000 hours like Scott McClory's. You're never gonna get it applied towards your life insurance. Well, you can guess, from 2007 to now, every one of those employees has a zero bank, because there's no reason for them to keep it. I mean, they're rolling the dice and hoping something catastrophic doesn't happen to them, but their sick bank is almost always at zero on every pay period, because they're never gonna get paid out. So, like, that's the only other thing, like I said, if we're gonna try that, like, you know, what's the magic number that we can absorb? Can we pay them out, everybody gets 20 hours, no more than that? You know, that's the kind of, like, manipulations you guys are gonna have to do besides behind the scenes and come back to us, in my opinion.
Well, and for clarification, my thought was that you would, if you're gonna do it, you get paid out, you know, if you leave, or if, let's say, your bank exceeds the 520 number, you know, that would be the circumstance. It wouldn't be an annual thing where people are just getting paid out.
Well, either upon retirement or when you overflow.
Yeah, that's
But
what
that
I'm
was the
saying.
part, that I'm telling you, that's exactly why the county couldn't afford to do it anymore. Because there was just so many people that had been here for 20, 30, 40 years, and and as soon as they hit that magic number, whatever it was, 300, 400, they got paid out in cash, and they couldn't do it. And I'm sure, again, Corey would have to go back and look, you know, just magically, you know, hypothetically, today everyone who's over 300 hours gets the balance paid out in cash on this check. How much is that gonna cost the city? I have no
Well,
idea. I have
right
no idea.
now, we're paying people who haven't accrued anything to be out for up to like 3 months
Right,
or something like that. So the
Right.
city's already foot the bill for quite a few
right,
employees.
so.
Yeah, I mean, right now, basically, as soon as somebody leaves, it gets dumped into the donated bank, somebody uses it, and then we're paying, like I said, we're paying 100% of their, so that's why if we were to do something, it would have to be, the employee gets paid like I said, you know, a fraction of it, you know, 25% or something, so that we as the city have a, you know, financial savings from it, but
Yeah.
it looks like the chief, yeah.
Just a kind of clarification, so I think it was when the city transitioned over from vacation and sick to the paid time off, is when, like, those employees that have been here had to decide, what are we gonna do with that sick hours?
Yep, I remember that.
And
Uh-huh.
so, I'm sure.
And it was a one-time thing, we ripped the Band-Aid off and
Yeah,
just
so-
converted them or whatever.
So, but I'm sure Corey knows, like, so I had to make a decision, I think I put, like, a certain, like, 90 days, I put into my MLB just to cover that disability or whatever else, and then I kept the other to be paid out upon retirement. But that was, I can't remember, that's been ages ago, as far as how many employees are still here that,
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but so, and then we did the same with the collective bargaining agreement with the association as well. I think all of those members that had a payout benefit have since now retired.
Okay,
But the thing with that is you don't get paid out when you retire, you have to bring in invoices from insurance and premiums that you're paying, and then the city cuts that check. So it's not like you're getting paid, that was my.
For the
see, at
non-union.
the county,
The union people have-
Yeah, union, but the non-union, us,
for
we,
like the next 12 years.
No,
no,
I had like 4,000 sick hours.
that's the way I understood it.
I never did sick.
He said, well, he does, he does.
So the,
I don't work.
Well, you might have been here because you were here longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I don't, mine has to be that way.
the PTO donated leave bank, policy was created in June of 2016, and at that time, they had some sort of a structure for years of service and hours, you could receive from the bank, and then in 2019, it was changed. And so basically, I know the policy is intended, right, it says right there, to provide a safety net for employees. It's supposed to be something to help our employees. More so, it seems like the short term. However, it's not always really working out that way, so that's why.
Right now, if I've been here 20 years and I leave and I have 1,300 hours, it automatically goes into this other fund. I can't say, I don't want you to use it for anybody else, I just wanna let it dissolve, or I wanna cash it out, I don't have those options, correct?
correct.
Okay. So when I leave, whatever I did, so my options are to burn it as fast as I can when I get close to the end, which we've all seen. I mean, you know, again, like at the county, I'm gonna go back to the sheriff's office. When you have 180 hours left and you're in your last 6 months, you're calling in sick every other day, because you're never.
It can't be used that way. So the donated leave bank was for FMLA qualifying events only.
Okay. Okay,
And this brought up another question in my head over the last week because of COVID not being considered whatever anymore.
right.
Are we
The
gonna have to
emergency
go
is over.
back and
Yeah.
amend that? Because we did approve, or you guys approved, that people could still use it for COVID related. And honestly, over the last few years, that's what it's been a huge chunk
Sure.
for, was COVID related
but the medical leave bank is basically a short-term disability
Right.
Right.
before you get to the long-term disability.
So anyone
that's
who
why
has,
Yeah, but you lose that, it's
Correct.
572 hours. If you don't use it before you retire,
Just
you lose
so
it.
it won't, I
If
mean.
you don't have a qualified event.
Yes, it's a benefit for you personally if you have nothing happening because you're medically well. The only way you can access those hours are if you have an FMLA qualifying event. So the pots are generally sitting there, for the most part, unused. And this was a way to borrow to help or lend. But the wording between the policy and procedure manual and the PTO donated leave bank manual do not coincide. So if we're keeping them,
Yeah, for sure.
but we kind of need the direction of which way are we moving as to how we
Well,
would
like I
clean
said, I'm
those
only
up.
speaking for myself, I need more of a, like a formal proposal. This is how we're gonna clean up the language to match the program or change the program to match the language. This is what we propose. This is what's gonna work the best from this, on behalf of the staff. Cause I don't think any of us are, maybe Joel, but I mean, for the council members that are, the part-timers here, we don't use this, we don't access it. So it's hard for us to really, I think it's hard for us to get our brains wrapped around it. Versus you give me a half a page that says, met with Lacey, met with the department heads, this is what we think we should do so that this thing, it gets cleaned up once and for all.
I have an idea. Can we come up with two proposals? One, if
Sure.
this is the language that will be used if the policy is extinguished, and this is the structure we would like to see if the policy is kept.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
So do we need a motion, or is that just a suggestion?
I'm not the chair.
All in favor, say aye. Or did we get a motion? We had a motion.
We didn't give a motion.
Oh, okay.
Do you want a formal motion, Adam? Or can we just it says discussion and possible action, so.
That's up to you. I mean, whether you want to make a formal motion, either way,
No.
we have a sense as to what you are
Yeah.
looking for.
We'll
so.
just circle back.
Or if you did a motion, you would just say, and have them work together and come back to the committee.
Right. I think we're good.
Okay, next, discussion and possible decision regarding allocation of duties in administration and finance department and replacement of vacant treasurer position. Anybody?
I guess I will just kick off the discussion by saying that, obviously the treasurer position is vacant right now, and so prior to wanting to post for that position, we talked about, allocation of duties and whether, any other duties could be, merged with the treasurer position or how to best, allocate the duties. And initially our thought was one option would be to move some of the accounting functions from the office manager to the treasurer position, because if you look at the office manager's position, it's described as being like a deputy treasurer. And so we thought, well, if we move some of the office manager duties to the treasurer, that would free up more time for the office manager to help with particularly, I'm gonna say HR related duties, but there's some other just general office functions we need help with, from IT to other just general office operations. So that was one thought. We certainly, Stephanie and I sat down along with Corey and Lacey just to talk about, duties and how that would work. And, certainly we think we could probably free up 25%, let's say, of Stephanie's time. Stephanie provides a significant amount of support and backup for the utility billing functions for the office. That's been particularly critical for this year because we certainly had some staffing shortages due to family medical absences. So having Stephanie be able to get trained, crash course on some of these things over a month or two was instrumental to keeping the utility billing functions going forward. So it was really helpful to have her available for that, and Stephanie provides this kind of support constantly. I mean, she's constantly working with everybody in the office on utility billing related matters. And then, you know, she also does a lot with assessments and filing tax assessments. I could go through a laundry list of her duties, but so certainly, you know, Stephanie already has a lot right now. So we think, like I said, if you took away some of the accounting stuff, you could probably free up, let's say, 25% of her time. Whether that's significant enough, or in terms of whether that's substantial enough to then be able to take some of the HR duties and reallocate them to Stephanie, we're not sure. We're just really not sure. You know, Lacey put together a list, which was in the council packet. Hopefully you guys saw that. Kind of a laundry list of the things that the HR duties right now that Lacey's been working on, and it's lengthy. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on, from, you know, workers' comp claims to FMLA claims, which, I mean, the number of FMLA related claims that we're getting is pretty constant. I mean, it just seems like a lot. So you're constantly processing those to, you know, dealing with employee onboarding, offboarding, it's a lot, you know, scheduling trainings. And so you know, our concern is it going to be too much to, let's say, dump onto, let's say, could you fit that list into what, let's say, Stephanie's doing? You know, we're not entirely sure. One thought was, well, we could break it apart and say, well, okay, you know, Stephanie takes workers' comp claims and unemployment claims, and then, you know, Lacey's doing employee onboarding and FMLA. The challenge is FMLA issues involve sometimes workers' comp. They can involve, well, not workers' comp. It can involve, you know, general health insurance related claims. They could potentially, I guess, have a workers' comp element to it. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are actually pretty interrelated. So, and like when employees get onboarded, there's a checklist of things you're doing, and when you're offboarding, or, you know, when somebody's leaving, there's a checklist of making sure that, are they turned off the city's health insurance? Are they, you know, have we contacted not only, you know, dental, but our health insurance? Have we gotten the FSA, HRA notified? So you want to make sure that whoever's handling that is thinking about everything and doing all three things, and that it's not like somebody did 1 and 2 and then there was a disconnect and steps 3 and 4 or 5 didn't get done. And so that's the situation we're at. Just trying to figure out what to do with the HR side and what to do with, I'm gonna say particularly the office manager position, because, you know, we don't know where else those duties could potentially go. So hopefully that's an introduction for you.
So I have a few immediate questions. The first would be, how often are we hiring new employees? Like right now we have an open treasurer's position. Are there like 16 other open positions that we're trying to fill right now, or are we pretty much 100% staffed citywide?
No.
No. Well, I know you're
Yeah.
an anomaly, but to your point, when you do hire a new firefighter, they still have to come here and fill out the forms and meet with the HR person? Okay, okay. So that's my first question. My second question is, within the limits of the budget, and this may be a question for Corey more than anybody else, could we do something as unique as putting out a flyer to hire somebody to be an HR generalist at 50% of the time, with the opportunities potentially in the future to become a fully insured, full-time employee with benefits and insurance and all that if the budget will allow? Because right now, I don't see us coming up with 60 or 100 and whatever it said, 100,000 is what the full-time spot would be, right? Even taking money out of those other funds. So can we take a little bite of the apple and hire someone who only works like 16 hours a week? Or whatever, 20 hours a week. You know, you don't have to pay them insurance, but we say right in the job description questionnaire, this may become a full-time position with benefits in the next budget cycle, depending on council actions. No guarantee, but at least, I mean, they know that they're getting their foot in the door. I'll just throw that out there. The last thing I would throw out is, if we can give her, Stephanie, the HR responsibility with the big umbrella, but she, within her purview, has the right to delegate and farm out little pieces of it to her staff as she sees fit. I need you to make sure this girl gets a drug screen. I need you to do FMLA, whatever. I mean, ultimately, it falls on her, at least temporarily, because that's what we're doing right now, aren't we? Or are you and her kind of sharing that?
I do it all.
You do it all right now. Right now, she does nothing.
I'm sorry.
She does lots
As it
of
relates to HR, as it relates to HR. So right now, you're overburdened, you've got to, the short-term bridge pieces, we've got to get the burden of all the HR stuff can't fall on you continually. We can't do that anymore. So how do we, reverse engineer that? What can other people in the building take away from you, at least on the short term?
I think it would be not feasible nor a good choice to farm out any HR, especially to hourly employees.
Well, we don't
I
have
don't
anyone to do it.
know how we could ever,
It's confidentiality stuff.
correct. I don't know how we could ever find a part-time HR, if there is one out there. Please come here.
I don't know, I mean,
So,
this is
because
not
it's a
working, is my
special
point.
team. Correct.
So to simply say, Scott, we can't have anybody else do it, okay, then we'll just keep dumping on her till she quits.
Well, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can't divvy it up to all the other employees because it's an HR activity, it's a whole bunch of confidentiality stuff that has to be in place, so you can't just divvy it up.
Assigning someone to go to Ock Health to get a drug test has nothing to do with confidentiality, just got hired here.
HIPAA laws, there's all sorts of things you have to follow.
I understand that, I lived in the HIPAA world just like you did, but to just I mean, a clerk can say, you know, we used to literally hand someone a sealed envelope, and everybody knew what the sealed envelope was. It was the thing that says, oh gosh, it's my turn for random drug testing, I guess I'm walking across the street. Anybody could do that. Maybe we shouldn't have done that, but anybody could do it. So, I don't know. This is not working, clearly. And so, like, I'm open to suggestions, but having Lacey just continue to do it because we're stuck doing it, that's not, I don't think that's a feasible option for us. Because you're gonna get burned out, you're gonna get mentally, physically, emotionally sick, and it's gonna affect you and the rest of the staff, if it hasn't already. So we have to do something to take that burden away from you immediately, if not sooner. So how do we do that? How do we parse that out? Can we hire an outside party to do it for us? A third party, which I'm sure would be like 3 times as expensive probably. I don't know.
Yeah, and the challenge is in terms of parsing it out, I mean, realistically, you know, a good chunk of our staff is obviously focused on utility billing. I mean, that's what they're doing. We've got, you know, in terms of just from the finance admin side, it's basically Corey, me, Stephanie, Lacey, and then the treasurer. So you got the 5 of us. And so, there's not a great person in there in terms of, there's not like a lot of great opportunity to be really able to, like I said, divvy that out. And you have to have somebody who's got access to personnel files, right? So, and as we've talked about before, I've been thinking, you know, okay, one person needs to be making sure the health insurance claims are paid. Well, in order to do that, you're getting information from the health insurance company as to, hey, so-and-so just had this medical procedure, they're having this, you know, it has to get paid.
Yeah.
It's all very, obviously, you know, Lacey and I guard that information super carefully. And so.
Could we hire an assistant office manager who does HR stuff? That works under Sarah?
Stephanie?
I'm sorry, Stephanie, wrong S. Could we do that? I don't know.
Here's the question. So we have Sarah as the deputy clerk.
Mhm.
Is that something we can expand on her role?
I
Just an idea, she's already here.
She's already here, with plenty to do on the clerk side. She does help if needed, but I try to not have that much of the HR personnel stuff handled by her because she's helping way more with licensing and other things that
So here's another
is
question.
working better.
Right now, she's part-time, how many hours does she work a week?
20.
What if we made her 40? Is there 20 hours a week of HR?
There's 100 hours a week of HR. And yes, she would probably accept a 3/4 or full-time position if offered.
Could we absorb that, Corey? Making her full-time?
We've kind of calculated out some possibilities with distribution, so the general fund, I think, just looking at the wages on Adam's information that was there, we could do it with spreading it, because they work for the utilities too, so obviously you spread it between all the other departments, so, I mean, I think we could do it. This year, we're under budget on some other departments, so I think
challenges we'd have to, we would need to just check to see what the impact would be. Let's say if you're looking specifically at the deputy clerk position, we'd want to see the impact of it, but, would I say, would we break even? Probably not, but, if we were to hire somebody completely new, we thought it'd cost the general fund about $30,000. And then, like I said, we have about 10,000 savings from, I say savings, but having re-looked at the distribution of the costs among the departments, so now you're looking at 20,000 for the general fund, which, could we absorb that? Hopefully, probably. I mean, the PD is under, so, not that we're gonna bill everything to the PD, but, I guess before I give you a definitive answer on what would happen with, let's say, converting the part-time to a full-time, we'd have to look at it. Yeah, we wanna run the numbers.
Just throwing out the idea.
Yeah.
Because she's already, she's already in a position. All right, and it's, it would be like a part-time journalist, because the individual's already here.
Your microphone, I don't think is down.
What do you want me to do?
I would love that, thank you.
So, I've been talking all along.
I think that idea would allow us to keep everything in the clerk's office
Correct.
and closely held. It would just be you and Sarah.
The one thing I would absolutely need is training. It's HR-specific training.
Which, if I may speak, I guess that's my point specifically. If you're looking to have someone fill an HR role, why are you not going out to find someone that specializes, that has training and education in that function? I'm just so confused right now by the discussion of, let's just pick up this part-time person and make her HR. What does she have for knowledge, skills, or abilities that makes her HR? I'm very
I think
confused.
it's just a money thing. It was just an idea. I don't know what her background is.
Okay, that's what
It's just an idea that someone's already here.
okay, I'm
That's all.
at a loss.
So, you certainly can go to the outside and bring someone in, but the concern is trying to get someone to come in part-time.
Did we used to have a person that did HR, or have you done HR since you started?
I've done it since I've started.
So how many years?
3 point however many months it's been.
Okay. Why is this why didn't this come up 3 years ago?
It's come up every day. But now we're finally getting to the point.
Okay, so with different administrators, et cetera, it's come back, okay,
And I think-
okay.
I
'Cause
mean,
I'm like,
I
if
can't-
you were buried 3 years ago, we should have got you an HR person 3 years ago.
Yes.
That's, I mean, to Joel's point, like.
I always have to go to someone. Now it's Adam. We talk about this stuff. We bounce ideas off each other. I'm constantly researching. We now have the personnel attorney. It used to be Jim, but it's basically just been figuring out as I go, contacting every single person through the insurance companies to figure out how are we doing this, how are we doing that. It absolutely is a specialty. That's why I don't know if we could find someone part-time if that's what we're looking for. If we choose to keep it somehow in-house and use current employees, anyone that is tasked with this title or all other duty as assigned should get serious training.
So why don't we take a look and go to the outside and see if there is a service that we can contract for 6 months?
That's what I said, look,
Why don't we-
find a
let's
third party and
But
see if
see what it costs.
Yeah.
Nothing to get a quote.
a temp staff or whatever they call that, I don't know, something.
Contract.
Right.
Contract.
I mean,
I just think, can I speak? I just think part of the problem with the HR that we've had was always done by one person for the 20-some years I've been here. And the staff wasn't as large as it is today.
sure,
The staff was probably.
we should have got a person just doing
Since
HR
I
for
started
many
here,
years.
so I think the
Yeah.
duties of that position and the laws that change, and you have to keep up with them.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody that's qualified to keep up with that and train
Sure.
them. I mean, you don't wanna make any mistakes when it comes to HR, because if you do, you're gonna get yourself in some big, it could cost you a lot more money than hiring a new person.
Oh, sure.
That's all my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Is there any bridge piece right now for you? Whether that's letting her have 5% of the HR stuff, or 10%, or whatever, so we can take any of the burden off of you? Because you literally said not 5 minutes ago, HR is 100 hours a week. Well, I know you do a lot more stuff besides HR as a city clerk, so clearly, we need to take some of that away from you, even if it is as silly as it sounds. You now schedule new hires to go get their blood taken for drugs across the street at Ock Health. I'm not dealing with that anymore, Sarah, you are. I mean, you need to delegate even the littlest chunk of this away from you.
Well, I've been delegating more clerk duties to her.
Okay, you're
To
keeping the
help
HR stuff and giving her,
offset.
oh, that's fine, either way you wanna
Yeah.
skin the cat.
Well,
Either-
because
yeah.
most of the hours I work in the office have to be spent on HR because that stuff needs to stay in the office.
Right,
And so when she's here, she's helping me with whatever needs to be done, but essentially I'll hand her a pile and say, this needs to get done. And it's licensing or
Okay.
certificates or ordinances or whatever it is.
okay.
But there's still the training aspect. So it's nice that whatever she's already trained in, she's running with, and then if there's something that we just need to tweak, it's easier than starting over with another new piece.
Okay. Well, let's peel the onion a little bit further. We reach out to some third party and they're like, yeah, we can give you some for 6 months, it's 150 grand a year. Okay, that doesn't help us. So, okay, then what? I don't wanna have another meeting a week from now when Adam says I looked it up and we were screwed. So what are we gonna do if that doesn't work out? We might as well explore that now.
Post a job for a part-time if it's too much.
Okay?
My question to the staff when we had our meeting was, do we have enough for a full-time treasurer, or how can we move things around? And I was assured we need a full-time treasurer. So other than that, having a full-time treasurer and hopefully maybe someday soon having full-time HR, maybe we can just have a fundraiser. People give us the money. I really don't know. What about the grant writer?
Don't do GoFundMe, they take 10% of all the money.
I wish I had the answer.
So you're basically saying that the treasurer is out of that deal. They gotta be full-time as a treasurer.
That's what I was told. I don't know what a treasurer does. So that's why the four of us met to sit down and try to rearrange the pieces of the puzzle. And it makes absolutely no sense to simply take a huge responsibility of HR and just hand it to someone else who already has a full plate, so.
So taking HR out of the equation, what other things can we divvy up? You know, because there was discussion about, you know, what the treasurer does versus what Stephanie does. Stephanie, right?
Yeah. Don't
No,
start there.
Just want to make sure. We'll get you. You know, that was also part of the discussion that needed to take place. What are duties that should be moved around? So maybe you got to push HR aside for now and focus on the things that we can accomplish at this point, or other ideas. Because we do have them sitting here, I mean, get feedback or what things are being proposed. Just a suggestion.
Well, I would just say that with respect to, you know, the treasurer position, right now, you know, Corey's been operating at probably 150% the last, not only a couple months, but I mean, since I've been here, you know, for the last year, I mean, Corey's definitely been putting a lot of time in and definitely needs help. Just the amount of reporting that we have to do with the state is, I mean, it's like every week there's some report they want. And just for example, like, you know, doing the bonds, for example, I mean, it's a very lengthy process, the amount of, you know, information we have to put together and help, you know, publish, even though, yes, Ellers helps us with it, but they're looking to us, give them the data, and we have to review all the documents. I'm just using that as an example, or when we're applying for the water loans, we have to provide all the information for that. So it's just like, there's always something going on, and then, you know, we haven't got, you know, budget season's getting ready to start, so, you know, let's say the finance director really needs to have a treasurer who can help with that process. So, and quite frankly, you know, I think, you know, Corey would probably agree. We know there's things that we could do better on in terms of reporting financially that we haven't been doing. And so I wouldn't say the treasurer position's got a bunch of excess capacity that, you know, we definitely need that position filled. And quite frankly, you know, I always say this, you know, you know, if for some reason, you know, Corey is, you know, heaven forbid something happens to Corey, she's sick or whatever, now we've got no backup, right? So that's not a great option either. Plus, from a segregation of duties perspective, you know, you need somebody who's, you know, if somebody's doing journal entries, you wanna make sure somebody else is also.
We want to be, we don't want to be the next Dixon, Illinois.
Correct. So for all those reasons, like, we definitely need the treasurer, and we need to get that position filled, and from what we know, like I said, we've got work for that person to do. Do we think that, yes, possibly, you know, maybe some of the accounting-related functions that Stephanie's been doing, could that person take on a little more of that? Sure. Would that free up a little bit more time for Stephanie? Probably. And there's certainly some things that Stephanie could do. You know, we've talked about getting her more involved in some of the IT functions, doing, you know, issuing key fobs to, getting, you know, doing our IT software, that kind of stuff that's office manager related. Stephanie had been doing our exit interviews. She started that probably 6 months ago. So we were trying to get her more involved, with some of that stuff, and we continue to do that. But in terms of like a massive, I don't know what other duties we can really shift around right now, really, honestly. So.
Have you reviewed the current duties of treasurer? Do you think the way it reads right now is accurate? Because if it needs to be cleaned up, let's clean it up now before we put the job description questionnaire out there for the public.
Yeah,
This is what our treasurer is gonna do, not this other frivolous stuff and not this other stuff, and this is what they really are gonna do at the core. So I would recommend we clean that up before we put it out to the public. There's nothing worse than you think you're gonna do X, Y, and Z when you get there. Oh, yeah, man, you're gonna have this too. Oh, we didn't put that in there, oh, sorry. We've all been there. So.
Which I guess was my point, is pulling that stuff, whatever Stephanie's doing, if that's gonna go to the treasurer, you need to get that out, and get it in.
Right.
To the job description.
Right.
And then updating hers to reflect the new stuff, so we can get a better understanding of what everybody's doing as we figure out how to also help the city clerk with the HR functions.
Well, from a timing standpoint, I think one of the takeaways from today's meeting was going to be an official approval from HR to send to the full council that we are gonna actively fill the treasurer's position, correct?
That would be, I think the hope is that we move forward with filling that. Now, I will say, we did meet, we did talk about what duties should be added to the treasurer position, or make sure that we wanted the job description. If you've looked at the treasurer's job description, it's pretty bare bones. I mean, there's really not a lot listed on there, so it currently doesn't reflect a lot of what the treasurer was doing or should be doing, and so we can get that corrected because we've got the information. So before we actually post it, we would do that, but
I think we need to post it like yesterday. I mean, it sounds like we're burying you in two completely different fields, but the treasurer's thing we gotta get squared away, I would think. And then, you know, I know you guys have some work, you know, some investigative digging to do about the possibilities about the HR spot, but unless you guys tell me differently, I think we should come out of this meeting, as a committee telling the full council, let's post and get this treasurer's position filled. Unless other people in HR disagree with me, or the full council for that matter.
Don't you have to have the updated position before you can vote on it? To update what it is that we're expecting?
We don't, they need to write it up. When they're comfortable that it says what it needs to say, and it's not bare bones, and it does include the stuff you said, that needs to be either deleted or added or whatever, then go ahead and put it out. But don't wait another month to come back to us and say, here's the job description questionnaire, you guys approve of it or agree with it. I don't think that's our place.
Yeah, can you bring the new, job description for treasurer to the council meeting?
Right.
When we vote to fill the position right away, here's the description.
Right.
And so get that off the plate right away.
It's gonna take them at least a month to get it out and have people reply and interview and blah, blah, blah. So.
And then, my question is, I like the idea if we could find such a person to be part-time HR, but also is there training available?
Tons.
If we're gonna go, where is that? Is that at Gateway? Is that at UW?
All over the, they're all over the
Did
state.
you take some training when you started doing it? Or you learned by doing?
I'm not gonna answer that question.
So, I mean, if we did decide to go in-house with it, is there training available that would be beneficial right away?
Yes.
Yes, there's training.
All over the Midwest.
But wasn't it said though that she's putting in $100 a week out of that job, and you get somebody part-time, and I don't know how that's gonna help.
20 hours more.
No, in a perfect
Well,
world,
hopefully,
we'd
if
wanna
it's
go
someone
forward.
who has the knowledge, they won't be researching for hours to find things.
They'll be more
I mean,
efficient.
yeah,
Sure.
so,
We can try, like you said, maybe the worst case is like we get crickets, everyone's like, I'm not working 20 hours a week without benefits as a HR person, not gonna happen. Well, we can, okay,
Could be someone that's semi-retired
Right.
that just wants to,
yeah,
you know, that lives close to, hey, I could do that 20 hours a week
right,
and still stay up on their skills.
yeah.
It's possible.
It's right, you're right, it's absolutely possible.
Is that full-time HR person, 40 hours a week, is that out of our reach financially? Is that off the table?
It's not budgeted for, so I mean, it's not like we're gonna be fine. We have to look at the numbers and see, but
I recommend, since he's not here, that we use Bruce's salary for the remainder of the year.
That's not my.
His whole $6,000. Well, I guess see how lean you can cut the bone, Corey. I mean, if there's a way that we could do a full-time position, let's have that in our back pocket. If the part-time or three-quarters time or whatever way you guys want to write it up doesn't pan out, we better have another option available to us. We either need to get a new HR person or we need to get another deputy clerk along with the one you already have. Somehow, some way, this 100 hours has to whittle back down to 40 for you.
It'll never be 40, and I'm
Well,
fine with that, but,
But you know what I mean.
if there's not some sort of something figured out by 2024, I don't foresee being able to do both with a presidential election next year. I'm just putting it out there. So,
Just, I guess my question is, Lacey, if hypothetically speaking, the deputy clerk position was a full-time position, I mean, do you think those extra 20 hours would substantially, you know, how much would that really offload from your schedule? Understanding that there'd have to be a transition period where you're, you know, kind of helping the deputy clerk get caught for speed.
I guess it really just depends on what we want the deputy clerk's focus to be. And if it's gonna be the HR, then it would have to be setting up some formal training and piece by piece moving it over. I don't see it being unrealistic. However, I know the way I work and I see how others work, and I'm not saying anything negative. I'm just saying that when it comes to the HR, it is so specific. There's just so much more to it than having a deputy clerk that handles something else clerk related. So that's the part where I guess it really just depends. I'm not sure.
Well, let's, I guess I'll make a motion that staff continues to explore all options regarding the treasurer's position, and some type of an HR person, and get the treasurer's, job opening up, written up, and, as quickly as we can get it solidified and, you know, get it back to the, full council for us to go ahead and publish. Let's get somebody. We gotta get that treasurer in here. And then, when you come back and say, I looked into it and we can't afford, you know, this, that, and the other thing, I guess we have to do something. I don't know. What would be the, I assume, Corey, it'd be cheaper to have 2 part-time assistant city clerks than to have 1 full-time city clerk? I mean, 1 full-time assistant?
well, when you add on the benefits,
Sure.
yeah, it's a lot. But
So, if,
will you be able to get somebody that can do what we're needing them to do?
right. I'm just trying to get your 100 back down to something closer to 40. If right now 20 hours is what she's working, like you said, either make her 40 hours a week and give her twice as much work, literally, to free you up some more. That's still not gonna solve our HR problem, except you'll have a little more time to do HR-related research. But if we're not gonna do an HR person, then we need to send you to HR training. But I don't know that you're interested in doing that. That's not what you were hired for. You were hired to become a city clerk, not an HR director. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm fortunate that I like almost all my job duties.
So,
Open records, not my favorite.
right. That's my motion. I know I said it all goofy, but you'll make it make more sense.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
Oh, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.